Real quick, for those not in the know, KFC and X-Transbots are the same company. I think I call this thing X-Transbots the entire time, but I shouldn't have. It's technically a KFC release, so forgive me that. The labeling should be right. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we're going to be doing a versus. We haven't done a versus in a while, and we're going to compare the Recording Alliance from Deformation Space with the Transistor Metallic Paint Edition from X-Transbots or KFC or whatever it was when they released it. Please forgive the mess. There's been a busy week going on here, and I just haven't had time to keep it nice and tidy. I've had people in and out, etc., etc., etc. It's going to be busy for the next couple of weeks, so I don't know exactly how it's all going to go, to be honest. But real quick, before we get into that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. I don't think there's much to talk about. Everybody seemed to enjoy the Q&A. That's good to hear because I have more coming. Shout out to the folks on Patreon for asking the questions. I greatly appreciate it. And apparently a lot of other people do too. Real quick, on the Nightbird video, there were so many people that were like, well, you could take the backpack off. Like, I don't know what to say about that. Like, that's fine, but it's not just the backpack. The torso is offset from center. It's a bad design. Now, taking the backpack off may make it look better or more accurate to Nightbird, but like, how much of that do we truly accept? How much of taking things apart to make them look right do we accept? I think that's an interesting question just to pose. It's not like I haven't done it. You know, I definitely have. But when I review something, I can't say that it's better because you can take it apart and make it look good. You know what I mean? Or I shouldn't, I guess. At least not something that significant. And I think that's really it. So let's go ahead and do these. Now, to be fair, Transistor came out in 2015. It's now 2022 when we get Recording Alliance. There's something to keep in your mind as far as perspective. Also, there's some things that we have to do that are just subjective. I try to be as objective as possible. And sometimes when I know my own subjectivity is kind of easing its way in, I try to lean the opposite way to kind of give points to the best I can do, really. I don't really care with these two which one is better because I just don't like the aesthetics of one over the other. So like, I don't have a dog in the fight because the other one was never really an option for me. So I'm really trying to be as fair as possible about it. Also, we have to address this every time just to avoid 3,000 comments about it. The Sumbo chart, sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off, sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. I have to have something to have some sort of ground floor way of looking at it, something that's sort of objective across the board to compare size to, or there's no sense in comparing. And also real quick, in terms of presents, I'm not going to have my family pick these up and put these down anymore. My goal when I started with this was that they picked it up and mess with it a bit, but no matter how much I say it, they don't really do that. They just pick it up and put it down, and I think they're just saying what's heaviest, and that's not really what we're looking for here, right? And that's not really what the presents category is either. It's just a matter of aesthetics. So let's get ready to rumble. This is Recording Alliance from Deformation Space versus Transistor from KFC. Accessory-wise, they both come with the speaker weapon things, the gold bits. They both come with a blaster, 4-blaster, and they both come with a tape, albeit different tapes. However, the X-Transbots comes with an alternate head. It comes with additional hands for a different figure, so I guess that counts, but not really. It comes with a little screwdriver, which is my favorite third-party accessory of all time. It technically comes with 2 blasters, while the DS doesn't come with much more than the tape, blaster, and speaker weapons. Gimmicks wise, they both have the tape into the chest thing. The X-Transbots one works better, but they both have it. So X-Transbots takes accessories and they tie out in gimmicks. Moving on to build and materials. The build of the Deformation Space is better. The X-Transbot suffers from those little finger ball pegs, along with non-pinned, independently articulated fingers. It also has loose thigh swivels and stuff. The ratchets in the hips are too wide-toothed, so to speak, so it just doesn't have the same build quality. However, the materials feel better. The plastics are denser, and it may even have die cast. I can't remember. But it just feels like a better thing in the sense of what it's made of. It's the only way I know how to describe it. So build goes to Deformation Space. Materials goes to X-Transbots. Hardware, they tie. They both have ratchets in the hips. They both have ratchets in the knees. Moving on to sculpt and paint. We'll start with the kind of full frontal view, so to speak. And I'll be honest, like they both do different things differently, but like I just think that the paint pops more on the X-Transbots. I think that all the sculpted details, specifically in the inside of the calf and the front of the shin,
chin pops more. I think that the way that the pelvis is laid out pops more, so to speak. The sculpt work and line work and the shoulders, the little yellow accents, I just think it just presents better. As for the head, I think from the front paint-wise, they both have the same amount pretty much. It's just that the X-Transbots paint looks better to me, but X-Transbots has a little bit of more sculpted detail in the front crest of the helmet, but I like the eyes better on the Deformation Space, but I like the mouth better, so to speak, on the X-Transbots. So I'm going to tie them out from the front. From the side, honestly, the helmet covers up most of the aesthetic, so I think it's kind of silly to rate it. They're both about equal there, no question. As for the chest, sculpt-wise, it goes to X-Transbots. X-Transbots also has more paint going on with accents and such. It just makes it look more visually interesting. I know that the DS is not going for a visually interesting look, but like, at what point do we say, well, that's not okay? In my opinion, I like this one gets tricky, right? Because like, I don't like the super plain aesthetic. So the X-Transbots just looks infinitely better to me in that regard. Not on all fronts. We're getting ready to get to somewhere it doesn't. But here is kind of where the X-Transbots really pops for me. But I do like the wider buttons on the DS. From the side, I don't like all those holes in the side of the DS, but I don't like just how bulky the X-Transbot seems from the side. So I think that they're kind of tied on the side. From the front, X-Transbots takes it. So for me, the arms are where the DS really kind of pushes ahead. I like the extra paint accents on the X-Transbots with the little triangle, but it's not enough here. There's too much going on with that forearm, and the elbows are too wonky to even really consider it as a competitor. To me, it's just a sweep for DS in this regard. From the side, same thing, except it's even worse because now the shoulder doesn't look good and the forearm doesn't look good and the elbows look wonky. Once again, just a clean sweep for DS here. The hips are a hard one, so to speak, because they look more accurate on the DS, which happens to look worse, in my opinion, than the X-Transbots. The X-Transbots has a nod to the design of what the DS is going for, so like, I can't call this. I think the X-Transbots looks better, but I understand that they're not trying to achieve the same goal here. So like, while we're comparing them, this is a hard section to compare because they're just so ultimately different. Now, from the side, I think that the X-Transbots kind of looks messy and unfinished and kind of incomplete, so we'll give it to DS because of the side view. So looking at it from the front, I like everything about the X-Transbots more. It has more paint accents, more sculpted detail. It still stays true to the design cues that indicate its blaster, but it takes some liberties and ends up looking better for it. The DS takes a very strict approach to the cartoon, but as a result, in my opinion, it doesn't look as interesting. From the side, once again, the amount of sculpted detail, of intricate line work, of pizzazz, and sauce to me just are so much more interesting to look at than the DS. Plus there's a ton more paint apps, so it just takes it. It would have already taken it from the front view. I usually don't show the inside of the leg, but for this one it is important. From the back, I think it's the X-Transbots again. It just looks way more interesting. It's got more going on. There's more pride put into it. There's a lot of like reused parts here, which is not a big deal, but when you see the shortcuts, you can't help but notice. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. I just think it looks so much better, the X-Transbots. Sheesh, I know this is gonna ruffle some feathers, but what can I do? I can only call it as I see it. So the arms and hips go to DS. The arms by a landslide. That elbow on the X-Transbots is one of the places where it really shows its age in engineering. It's just very, very antiquated especially by today's standards. And the elbow on the DS is just super clean. For the hips, I gave it to Deformation Space. I could argue about it and fuss about it, but I don't think it would make a whole lot of difference. And then they tie for the head because it's kind of like 50-50 here, 50-50 there. And then X-Transbots takes the rest. It takes the rest because it has more interesting sculpted detail and it has more paint accents. You know, whether or not you like something or don't like something, myself included, that's subjective and up for debate and discussion. But whether or not there's more work put into both, X-Transbots does objectively take that. Whether or not you like it is a completely different conversation. Articulation wise, the DS is on a ball peg at the base, plus an additional hinge behind it that gets you all the way up, and it allows you to manipulate it down, plus the side to side, just no real confused dog look. The X-Transbots is on a hinge swivel, not as far up, a little bit down. It actually doesn't stay either. Side to side, no confused dog look. DS has a waist swivel, really tight, and an ab crunch. X-Transbots has a waist swivel, no ab crunch. DS shoulders get up past 90 degrees, ratchet all the way around with no butterfly. X-Transbots hinge up at 90 degrees, spin around 360 with no butterfly. Bicep swivel, bicep swivel. Double hinged elbow for the full run, double hinged elbow that gets you just 90 degrees. Wrist swivel with fingers on a base pin knuckle with a secondary knuckle for each one. And the thumb has a ball peg for the base knuckle and then a secondary and tertiary knuckle as well. Wrist swivel, fingers completely individually articulated with a base knuckle, primary, and secondary knuckle on each one. So 3 joints for each finger, and then the 2 joints for the thumb. Drop down universals that get you out to 90 degrees, ratcheted forward and a little bit back. Ratcheted out to the side for 90 degrees, not as far forward, about the same back. Thigh swivel, thigh swivel. Double jointed knee for the full run. I think a single jointed knee, but either way, it only gets you 90 degrees. No ankle tilt, but you do get a toe tilt up. No ankle tilt down or toe tilt down, but you do get a rocker. No ankle tilt up, really. You do get an ankle tilt down and a rocker. Articulation-wise, it's almost a complete sweep the opposite direction. Deformation space takes almost everything with the exception of the hands, because X-Transbots does have those awkward, individually articulated fingers. And the ankles, because X-Transbots just offers more in that department. They tie at the bicep and thighs, as most do. They also tie at the wrist, as both tend to do. But deformation space takes everything. It's just a better, well-engineered figure in that regard. The action figure engineering of deformation space is just flat out superior. Transformation wise, it's interesting because they both kind of do the same thing, but the DS does it so much more gracefully and elegantly. The X-Transbots is just a tabby, flippy nightmare. It often chips the paint along the way. It's not even remotely intuitive. It's awkward and clumsy. The DS, surprisingly, especially after working on their Starscream, is elegant, easy, fun, intuitive, etc. And for that, the DS definitely takes the transformation engineering by a landslide. Alt mode wise though, it's technically a tie if I'm trying to be objective, because they both look like what they're supposed to, right? The XTB kind of is in that 2015 pocket of masterpiece aesthetics pretty much perfectly. The DS is trying to look exactly like the cartoon. So there's not a clear winner here. They both did different things and they both did them fairly effectively, but I prefer the XTB personally. Look, I know some of you guys are gonna take issue with this, but if I'm going off of this picture, which is the best I can find, the DS is slightly too tall. It's so negligible. I think it's more than fine. But if I'm trying to be 100% accurate, Blaster's head should not sit all the way above Inferno's. The bottom of Blaster's head should run through the top of Inferno's head. I have to give it to X-Transbots here if I'm trying to be objective. Price-wise, X-Transbots also takes it because it runs anywhere from $30 to $50 cheaper, depending on where you look. Which one do you think looks better?
So I actually think I like that one better.
There you go. All right, Jana, we're not going to do the picking up for this one,
Okay.
But which one do you think looks better?
This one. Ooh, let me flex. This one.
Okay. All right, Selena, which one do you think looks better?
That one.
That one. Mm-hmm. And do you want to show Bob?
Hi, Bob.
All right, baby. Which one do you think looks better?
This one.
This
Because
one.
this one looks crazy. This one, it looks smooth.
It's true. You're right. All right, thank you. So the accessories go to X-Transbots. Even though I didn't mention the extra face from DS, the accessories still go to X-Transbots because it still comes with more stuff. They tie in gimmicks, they both do the tape bit, they choose different tapes, but that's fine. The build goes to Deformation Space while the materials go to X-Transbots. The hardware goes to Deformation Space. Once again, in the video I said they were tied, however, I forgot that DS does have ratchets in the shoulder, so it takes that. Articulation also goes to DS by a landslide, while X-Transbots takes sculpt, paint, and scale. DS takes transformation. They tie in alt mode. Surprisingly, because I thought my wife was going to choose the metallic paint version because that seems to be her MO. It's mine too, to be fair. But surprisingly, DS takes the presence category. X-Transbots takes price. DS takes accuracy for a tied score of 6-6. It's funny, I thought X-Transbots was going to sneak by with the win here with 1 point because the presence category was the last thing that we did. But I'm actually okay with this score. It does seem to make sense for me.
And there you have it. Honestly, what I find so interesting about that is the lack of tied categories. I always enjoy when we look at these and they're like not a landslide, but at the same time have very few tied categories where it's just like, look, this thing does these number of things better and this thing does these number of things better. You know, and some of those are subjective, so you can apply your own kind of standards to them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, I do have a topic to talk about that I think it's pretty interesting and a little bit more cerebral, I guess. And as long as nothing kind of crazy happens in the fandom, we'll get to it. There's a lot of rumors about Dead End circulating around. Look, just real quick before we get out of here, when it comes to like rumors of something coming out or whatever, I just want to be crystal clear. I've been in this for 9 years. I've heard rumors that have been true. I've heard a lot of rumors that have been false. When it comes to releases, there's only one thing I believe, there's only one thing I trust, and that's my tracking number. If it's not that, it might as well say it's coming tomorrow or coming in a million years. They mean the same to me. So that being said, enjoy your week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.